Hello and welcome. Today's video will go over the basics of the Topicality file. We'll first go over what is Topicality. Next, we'll go through what's in this file, the increase versus create argument, the substantial argument, and the definition of education. Lastly, we'll talk about how to extend Topicality and win some debates. First, what is Topicality? As a reminder, Topicality is an argument about what it is and what isn't on the topic. It's a negative argument against affirmative cases that the negative feels they shouldn't have to prepare for that are too far away from the resolution. Every Topicality argument has three parts: an interpretation, a violation, and standards. The interpretation describes what the limits of the topic should be, specifically the part of that you plan on challenging the affirmative on. Think of it as a uniqueness claim, what the topic should be. The violation describes what the affirmative does wrong. Think of this as the link debate. And the standards show why this is a problem. This is the impact debate, and usually comes down to questions of fairness or education. First, let's talk about Topicality increase versus create. There are hundreds of existing federal education programs now covering a wide range of policy areas. It's already a large burden to research and prepare for changes to these existing programs. Creating a new program is a whole new level of preparation for the negative, and there often isn't research written against hypothetical ideas, so it's hard to answer every far-fetched idea that someone has. Therefore, the interpretation would look something like this. Increase requires something to exist before you increase it, referring to existing programs. Violation would say that creating a new program is different than increase and outside the topic. Standards could include things like predictability. We cannot predict or prepare for every potential new program. And limits. New programs make the topic simply too big. Topicality substantial is included in almost every resolution to ensure that the affirmative can't be too small. There might be great arguments for some small affirmatives, like raising the salary of a particular teacher or to build a chemistry lab at a particular school. These might be great ideas, but they're simply too small to expect the negative to form a coherent, research-based response. Topicality substantial would therefore look something like this. Interpretation. The affirmative must be considerable or to a large degree, and the affirmative is not substantial. That's the violation. The standards could say that there are an infinite number of small potential affirmatives and that we shouldn't have to and can't possibly prepare for them all, making a limits argument. They could make a precision argument, claiming that they have a strong definition from the Supreme Court and that any deviation from that definition shouldn't be allowed. Or they could make a ground argument that small affirmatives don't give the negative core ground, like the spending disadvantage, to run against them, biasing the topic for the affirmative. Topicality education asks bigger questions. What is education? This might refer to the act of learning things, such as when you learn that touching a hot stove is a bad idea by trying it. It also might refer to formal or structured learning that happens at a school. Even within that definition, what is education? Is building new schools education, or is that infrastructure? Is improving school lunches education, or food policy? What about offering incentives for teachers to get degrees in high-need fields? Is that K-12 education because of what the teachers will teach in the future? Or a loan forgiveness program for higher education that isn't topical? Every definition of education draws lines around what can and can't be part of this year's debate. Therefore, Topicality education could look something like this. Interpretation. Education is the establishment of schools, the development of curricula, and the determining of graduation and enrollment requirements for students. The violation is simple. The affirmative is not one of those categories. The standards. Predictability. We prepared for education policy, not related ideas such as infrastructure or food policy. You could also get into a more advanced concept called effects topicality. Doing something that will eventually impact education is unfair. There are too many potential actions that will indirectly improve education, destroying limits and predictability for the negative. So how do you debate topicality? First, read a topicality shell in the first negative constructive. It's important to read the interpretation that best fits the affirmative. What do you believe the topic should be? The violation should be as specific as possible about why they don't fit your interpretation. Make sure to include standards. Tell us why we should care. In the block, it's important to divide responsibility. Who is going to talk about which arguments? The debater debating topicality has a relatively easy formula to follow. First, it's important to extend your interpretation, being specific with key details. Here, you should answer any counter-interpretations made by the 2AC and explain why they are not good ideas and why they don't meet their own definition. Next, extend your violation, being specific with what they do wrong. This is where you should answer any we meet arguments made by the 2AC. Lastly, let's discuss the standards. Answering their standards arguments and extending your own is crucial. Be sure to argue that reasonability is a poor standard for evaluating the debate. When it comes to debating topicality in the 2NR, there is one rule. This is an all or nothing argument. Either go for it for the entire speech and talk about nothing else, or go for something else. Do not try to go for topicality and another argument. If topicality is what you're going to choose to go for in the 2NR, first, extend your interpretation. Answer counter-interpretation arguments from the 1AR. Then, extend the violation. Answer any we meet arguments from the 1AR. Lastly, extend the standards. Answering any standards arguments they make in the 1AR and bringing through your own. Lastly, explain to the judge how topicality is a voting issue, governing the fairness and education of the round. This is where you sell the judge on why they should vote negative on topicality, so make it count. In the JV division, the interpretations must stay the same, debating the substantiality of the plan, debating whether the plan is an increase or the creation of a new program, and debating the definition of education to provide some predictability for the affirmative. However, you can do new research to improve your arguments. New interpretation cards can expand and improve your definitions to help exclude specific affirmatives. New standards can provide additional reasons why the affirmative is cheating. An argument showing how the affirmative is extra or effects topical can add additional offense and tricks to your case, especially in the block.